What happened?
So this is probably about 15 years ago. I'm painting a house room in the living room, and the client asked me if they could run across the street to their neighbors real quick, and if I could babysit their kid while they were gone. Basically just keep an eye on their little toddler, 2 years old, 3 years old, something like that. I don't know. So I'm like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. I'm a real people pleaser. I don't want to ever like say no to anybody. I'm a lot better at that now, but so I agreed to do it. The kid's just sitting in the corner and playing with some toys or something. I'm not really paying too much attention, but so I've got my 5 gallon bucket of paint out. I dip my roller in. I'm like going on the walls. I turn around and the kid is standing in the bucket of paint. Somehow, this little toddler climbed into my bucket of Hamilton blue flat wall paint from Dunn Edwards. And it was a pretty full bucket at that point, like I kind of just started going. And luckily, it
Wait a
didn't
minute.
like, spill out.
Yeah. Have you seen that
But
picture that's
yes,
gone around the internets of like the baby with the paint all over the living
I
room?
have.
That
Yeah.
was
I
you.
posted
Right.
that picture. It wasn't my original picture.
Yeah.
Smartphones existed at the time, but it wasn't like,
Hmm.
it wasn't like top of mind that I was going to grab my phone and take a picture of this. I was just freaking out. I'm like, oh my goodness, there is a child in my paint and the parents are gone and I'm responsible for this. And so I like, had a couple, 2, 3 seconds of like, what do I do? I grab the kid, pick him up. There's paint dripping all over. So I put him back in the paint, and I, rearranged my drop cloths to kind of make more of a place I could get the kid out and deal with this. And then the best part, I mean, well, maybe the second best part of the story, because the kid going into the paint is pretty good. But the second part of the story is that as soon as I got the kid out, put them down, they took off running,
No.
and I'm chasing this kid that has paint like splattering all over, and it looked like the Tasmanian Devil cartoon. Like this little kid is whirring off. So I go running after him. They probably only got like 4 or 5 steps before I was able to grab
Yeah.
him again. I picked him up and I was like, now what do I do? I'm holding this dripping child in my
Yeah.
hands, and so yeah, I ended up like getting him over and set him down on the drop cloth, turn on the TV so that they would like stay put, and then just waited for the parents to come back. And they're a really cool client. They felt bad for me,
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
had to
Yeah.
deal with all of that whole situation. But yeah, that's probably the funniest painting story that I have.
That is so awesome. I love these. And everybody's watching and listening. Like one of the, we open everything with a crazy wild story. And the other thing is I said, don't tell me because I want to hear it for the first time. So this is the first time I hear these two. And it's just, they're
Yeah.
awesome. When you think you've heard them all, you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I actually forgot that this story had happened until I saw that picture that you mentioned. And I saw the picture and it just brought back the flood of memory. And I was like, oh, wow, that's right. And so I posted that picture on my social
Yeah,
media and everything. And
that's
so, yeah,
that's awesome.
it
Yeah,
happens
right on.
more than once, I guess. So,
Yeah, yeah, right on. Oh my. Well,
mm.
to our listeners and our viewers, hello and welcome back to the DYP podcast. Today's guest is from San Diego, California, owner of Paint Green / Peak Brothers Painting. Jon Ray, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Steve. Happy to be here.
Now, I reserved episode 100 specifically for Jon because this is a really cool story of how he's grown from 600,000 when he first joined UIB and is now projecting to $3.5 million in just a couple of years. Jon has been a one-to-one client of mine for a couple of years. I've flown to stay with him a couple of times to analyze the inside of his operations, get to know his team, as his wonderful wife Carissa, and experience some intense mountain biking rides and
Mm.
hikes up the top of its Dictionary Hill, right?
Dictionary Hill, yep.
Yeah, yeah, those are intense, and the views are worth it when you make it up the rocky climb. It feels like to me, like I say, Rocky is in Balboa. It felt like you had to have the eye of the tiger to make it up there. Yeah.
To give
But
people an idea of how steep it is, the house that's right next to us, the very top of their roof is lower than our floor. So, yeah,
and we're talking just like feet away too. It's just not like a
they're
big.
like 10 feet away, but yeah,
Yeah, you could jump off your lawn onto your neighbor's roof easily.
yeah, yeah, easily.
Yeah, so it's so steep. That's awesome, but the views are just breathtaking. However, it's not all about his success and all his hard work and habit changes from following the UIB system, but also because of the acquisition of one of my first clients and very first member of Mastermind Group One, which we call OMG, Original Mastermind Group, John Peak of Peak Brothers Painting, who was on the show back on episode 11. But before we unpack all that awesomeness, John, take us back to the very beginning. How did you first get started?
Yeah, college pro painters. I'm one of those college pro kids. So back in college in Seattle area, I saw an ad on a bulletin board and it said, "Make $10,000 as you're running your own painting company this summer." And I was like, "I want to make $10,000. That sounds great." So I called, interviewed, didn't get the position, and then went back in and was like, "Why didn't you hire me? Like, you guys, I'm perfect for this." And then they hired me after that. So I kind of forced them to bring me on. But did that for 5 years, going through college, and won the quality outlet of the year for the Western division of College Pro Painters for the last 2 years that I was there. And just it was a great experience. Got a lot of paint knowledge. I didn't even know anything about painting a house before I was all of a sudden the owner of a painting business, painting franchise. But so I kind of learned, I learned the ropes while I was on the field, and learned a lot just about business and how to run a small business, and a little bit about leadership and everything. And it was a great experience. Then I got into the corporate world, and I did sales for a big Fortune 500 company for a while. I did some remodeling sales. I got into the insurance business for a little bit. But then I realized that I didn't really enjoy any of that stuff. And I really enjoyed just being an entrepreneur, being kind of in control of my own destiny and where I was going with everything. And so when I moved to San Diego in 2006, had like $500 in my bank account and one family member who lived in town. And so didn't know anybody really, but instead of flying up to see my family over the holidays, I stayed home and wrote a business plan. So on Christmas Day, I woke up early and I just worked all day long on my business plan, and then started putting it all in action. I got my license in April of 2007, and then kind of grew slowly for a couple of years. The economy was pretty rough during that time. I was happy just to be paying my rent and keeping everything
Mm-hmm.
afloat. Then by 2010, 2011, we started to experience some pretty explosive growth. And I did not have the systems in place that I needed to manage everything that we had going. I had 35 employees at the very peak of it all.
Yeah, so let me jump in
And
here. Pardon me,
yeah,
John. So, Ron Rice, when you first joined UIB and jumped in, Ron Rice says, Steve, when Jon Ray came to town, like this dude exploded. He came in like a wrecking ball out of nowhere and was just everywhere. So, yeah, you
yeah,
said
yeah.
35 blew up to 35 guys. Like,
Yeah, it was an interesting time. Yeah.
hmm
And very stressful time because I didn't have the right systems in place to manage it
okay.
all, so I was spending a lot on marketing and buying all of my leads, and
Hmm.
just didn't have the leadership skills that I personally needed in order to run an organization of that size. And so it all imploded on me at one point. It was 2012, 12 when everything just kind of the house of cards that I had built just kind of fell down, and I realized I was going bankrupt even though I was running this really big company, and people were taking advantage of me, employees were stealing from me. It was just a rotten culture. It was a great experience to have learned all of that and to have gone through it now, but it was not very fun going through it at the time. So I kind of hit the reset button in 2014, and I laid everybody off. I turned the whole company into just kind of like a marketing company, and I was referring all of my leads to different contractors that I had relationships with for a fee. And, I thought maybe that would be like a way forward, but, it didn't really turn out how I was hoping it would. So, I spent a couple of years working on that, trying to make that happen. Got really introspective, was reading a lot of books, just learning a lot about myself and how business works, and then in 2018, right around then, I decided to switch gears again, went back to the traditional home ownership, business, home,
Hmm.
what am I trying to say? The traditional model of running a painting business. And then have started growing more sustainably since then.
Hmm.
And then 2020, I think, around the beginning of the pandemic, Steve and I started working together. And the ideas that DYB has cultivated and documented, and that I have on my wall right here and everything, those have really had a huge impact on aligning what my energy was going towards with the ideas that were going to be successful and allow the company to grow. So we've experienced a lot of growth since then. We went
What's
from, like you said, about 600 grand. We're
yeah,
projecting 3.5 million.
that's big. That's big. If we could zoom in there just a little bit, what were some paradigm shifts for you from the mindset you used to have and then when you came on and you started implementing some of the DYB system? What were some of the paradigm shifts there for you that others would like to hear about?
Really putting the focus onto the customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
And, I guess, sometimes I have like ideas, but they're not really fully formed. And then when that idea and I hear that idea and it's been fully formed and like put into words, and it's like, oh yeah. And it's like, bam, a light goes off. And like, that's the way to do it. And all of the little details about how to implement that idea, that you had already completely laid out for me. I was like, yeah, like this is gold. And so I just implemented, started like putting as much time as I could into working on the business rather than working in the
Mm-hmm.
business. Making sure that my clients had a great experience, doing the hiring. The hiring is such an important part. The painters really are your business. They're
Mm-hmm.
the everything that the customer sees, and the experience that the customer has really is up to them to give it to them. And so the experience of the customers, but then also the marketing side of things, is lights turned on for me when I realized that I didn't have to be buying leads, that I'd already had like a couple thousand people who liked me and trusted me already enough to the point to like hire me to paint their house, and like I could just like make sure that I was reaching out to those people on a regular basis
Mm-hmm.
for free or very cheap, and those people would be a huge source of business for us moving forward. So when I changed the marketing direction, I went from spending thousands of dollars a month, five, six, $7,000 a month in marketing, to almost nothing, and actually increasing the business just because of that change in my focus from buying new leads to, staying top of mind to past clients.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. How many crews do we have out currently?
8 crews,
Eight crews.
kind of
Okay,
depending on the
right on.
jobs, 7, 8
Yep.
crews. You have 8 crew leads. So,
Okay. And now John Peak, he had shared with me, and this is back when it was in confidence, so it's public knowledge now, but that he
Hmm.
wanted some help preparing and looking for an exit and to sell his company, and and excuse me. So I said, "Well, I've got the guy for you." No doubt in my mind, you were the right fit. And then, however, he let me know. He said, "Steve, I have a couple other suitors." I'm like, "What? No, And so he did. He had a couple others. So it took about, what was it? The whole process from introducing you to, but what, about a year and a half? It felt like. Does that seem right?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
From like initial introduction to close of the acquisition.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so I think we were introduced kind of before that discussion about me potentially buying the business started. So
Oh,
maybe
right.
between the two of you that had already been
Okay.
going, and he was secretly interviewing me, and I didn't know.
Yeah.
That could have
Yeah.
been. But
Yeah.
I think John and Peake and I first met. I want to say probably 3 years ago. So it was
Okay.
maybe
Right on.
a year and a half or so of him and I just
Hmm.
kind of like getting to know each other a little bit. And then
Hmm.
that conversation started about a year and a half.
There we go. Okay. So it was a long process, but it worked, right? It came through. Um, would you share that some of that? Would you share kind of how that process went as far as there was getting to know them? Why were you interested in Peak Brothers? Right. So that's an obvious question for those who don't know. That would be a good question, and then kind of how the process went for you.
Yeah. So Peak Brothers is one of the two or three companies that I emulated. And when I first moved to San Diego, 16 years ago, I did my market research and I was like, who are the best paint companies in San Diego? And I'm going to try to be like them and copy their websites and, try to do some of the same
Model
stuff that they're doing and
them.
everything.
Yeah.
Model, right? Uh, So yeah, Peak Brothers was one of them, and I just always had a great amount of respect for the company that John had built. His reputation was very strong, and he was doing all of the right things from as far as I could see. So it already started out as being this company that I always like looked up to, and that I wanted to model and all of that, and then I had never really considered the possibility of purchasing another company in order to grow mine. But when that opportunity came, I think you were the first to mention it to me, Steve, and then kind of started talking with John about it all. And it's like, yeah, this really makes a lot of sense. Like we do the exact same type of work, fine home painting, but he's pulling most of his clients from his pool of past clients, and I'm pulling most of my clients from my pool of clients. So it's not like we were competing. We weren't both like advertising on Yelp, and it's not
Hmm.
like I was going to be just buying out a competitor, but it was like really I was adding on his whole book of business onto my whole book of business, and that's just created, it's pretty much doubled the size of my business.
Yeah, indeed. So that's another strategy to DYB, right? Acquisition.
Yeah,
Yeah, right on.
yeah, it's worked for
Um,
me.
yeah, yeah, indeed. Now, John's still involved, right?
Yeah, he's moving more and more towards retirement, and I have him helping with some estimating, and he's mostly just transferring relationships over.
Hmm.
So anytime that a past client reaches out to John, he'll let me know, and we'll go out together and we'll meet that client and
Yeah.
kind of do the transition and everything. But then the biggest, thing that I'm really excited about, and that John is also seems really excited about, is the paint school that we're starting. So we have started this whole systematized training program for all of our painters, and we're testing it out on our company first. We're
Hmm.
going to work out all of the quirks and the kinks and the wrinkles and everything, and get everything smooth flowing with it. And then we're planning to hopefully open that up to other painters, at least here in the Southern California region, and really try to elevate the level of skill and professionalism of the whole industry here in San Diego.
A rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right on. What?
So John,
Mhm.
come full circle on that. John is like leading that effort. He's transferring his vast amount of skill, and he's basically going to be doing a lot of the instructing and teaching and everything for the school.
Which is something he's passionate about, so it's a natural fit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
very
then,
much.
true to his character, he didn't sell and bail. He's been there to transfer these valuable relationships over, which is key. And then he had shared in his podcast, I think it was 11, about when he and his brother met with the attorneys to work a buyout when when John went to go solo, and he said the attorneys were laughing because it was the first time they've ever had the I don't want to say opposing the two um, people actually arguing about no he needs more, no he needs more, no he should get more,
Hmm.
and it, and so something like this happened in this deal where there was and I forget, we won't go into the particulars, but there was like an extra $150,000, and John's like, nah, you know what, John, just don't worry about it, buddy. On top of that, oh, do you remember that?
I
So
do. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, John's character is impeccable. He's such a great guy, and the experience that I've had in merging the two companies, the success that we've had in that, in large part, is due to him setting it up properly and being there and really trying to make this the best investment that he could for me. So that's one
Hmm.
of the things he told me at the beginning. Is like, I want to make this the best investment you'll ever make in your entire life, and he
And
has. So.
indeed. So it's not, we talk about hire for character, but if you're going to buy, make sure you buy for character as well, because that's proven true. And so, which is similar to your character. That's why it's just been such a fun experience and transaction all the way around, and to watch it go and to
Yeah.
grow. And so it's just been a win-win-win, and just a sweet story and situation all the way through. Because you guys are both
Yeah,
good
so often
guys.
I've heard that after mergers like this, that there's like a lot of tension and kind of the seller and the buyer, like end up being mad at each other for whatever. You didn't tell me about this, and well, that whatever. But with John and I, we've just become like better friends through the whole
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
and
And even
it's
the
been
merger of the
a great
teams.
experience.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Even with the merger of the teams, I remember we had the discussion of like, all right, we're gonna announce it to both of the teams now, and it's like, oh man, how are they gonna handle it? And it went over just so well, right? They were all excited, they were congratulating. He gave John an award, and but the crews were excited about the new opportunities, and so it just comes to show that like you guys have both done a fantastic job with culture and cultivating culture, that where everybody's excited, about coming together.
yeah. Culture is a huge part of the success of what we've been doing, and that's been a big change in from how I was running things 10 years ago to how we're doing things now. And culture has played a huge um, part of making sure that our clients are having a good experience, that we're getting the jobs done quickly, and just that everybody is bought into what we're trying to build, and people are a lot of the employees are taking ownership of
Hmm.
their slice of the pie and making sure that everything that they're responsible for is getting done properly. And it's great. We use GroupMe for group chats, and every day there's people posting up pictures and high fiving each other, and helping each other out. And it's night and day difference between what we're doing now with culture versus how we were doing things
Yeah.
10 years ago.
That's awesome. For those listening who don't understand, or maybe they're on the other side of the wall, doing it like how we did it. Even myself, when I first got started, and with my first business back in Michigan, that didn't go well. Right when I did it the wrong way. What advice would you have some guys who don't haven't really implemented culture, hired for culture, or don't they just don't have a strong culture yet? What advice would you give them for turning this ship around?
Read a book about it, talk to Steve about it, like get all the help that you can in order to build a strong culture. It's not something that you're just going to do overnight. It takes consistency, and it takes a strong lead. It takes a lot of
Hmm.
leadership in order to build the kind of culture that you need. But man, it's it has such a big impact on every dynamic of the business. To have a strong positive culture where everybody's aligned and moving towards the same goal and has the same sort of attitudes and ownership over what they're doing, what their roles are in the business. So it's vital. If you don't have a strong culture, that's the first thing you got to start working on is building that culture.
Indeed, indeed. What's been a paradigm shift for you?
Oh man, I've had a lot of paradigm shifts over the last few years. Definitely the culture, since we're already talking about that,
Mhm,
just realizing the importance of having a strong culture and a positive culture. And every culture is different, right? And there's no like formula or a way of doing it. You just have to, it's almost like an expression of the leader's personality, the type of culture that you're going to develop. But
mm,
understanding that has had a huge impact. And then the marketing side of things by, focusing more on our past clients and having that paradigm shift from, going out and buying leads on Yelp and Zillow and Home Advisor and Angie's List and all those companies, and instead focusing on our past clients, just such higher quality leads and almost free, all of these leads that we get. And, that's had a huge impact on profitability as well as just the, the ease of dealing with our clients.
mm,
We already know that they're our three Ps and we already
mhm.
know that they're the type of person that we really want to work with.
So
Versus, if you get a lead off of Google, like you have no idea what type of person this is, and you have to figure that out after going through the whole process with them.
so the old way was hiring for skill and paying for leads, which was
Yep.
stressful, right? Chaotic, even sometimes, to hiring for character and honing in on your 3P, staying top of mind to your customer list, and generating referrals and repeat business. Peaceful and profitable, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Books. What
Hiring
are
for
some?
character,
Mhm.
staying top of mind, and then the whole culture thing. Like that's those three pieces right there, I would say are the main pieces that have really impacted us.
Fantastic. Thank you. What are some of your favorite books?
Man, some great books that come to mind. Um, Rich Dad Poor Dad kind of set me off on this mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset of going
Mm,
from, working in the corporate job to, realizing the power of wanting to own a business. And so Rich Dad Poor Dad is kind of the foundation of what set me off in this direction. But since then, the five levels of leadership had a huge impact on me. And, once you read enough leadership books, you kind of realize that they're all saying kind of the same thing, just different ways of saying it. And the five levels of leadership is just the most concise and clear and really just lays it all out. So that was a great book. Another one would be the E Myth, realizing
oh
that
yeah.
I needed to build a business rather than, just having a skill. And um, some other great books would be um, the Endless Referrals. Is that what it's called?
Hmm.
Bob Berg, I think.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
That's it.
That was a great one. The Culture Code was another
Hmm.
great book. That was really influential on how I built my culture. Um, and I'm just always like reading and listening to podcasts and everything. My car is like a rolling library. My wife and I, Chris, we have this debate back and forth about whether I'm reading a book or listening to a book. Because almost all of my reading is actually listening while I'm driving
Hmm.
around. Small business owners, residential paint business owners. We spend a lot of time driving, going to check
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
crews and seeing
Yeah.
customers and everything. And so I just use all of that time, as much of it as I can, to just be listening to something
Yep.
that's making me smarter.
Zig Ziglar what used to call that automobile university.
Yep.
Mhm. Tech stack. What does your tech stack look like to keep this $3.5 million operation streamlined and flowing?
Yeah, well, we use a lot of tech. The life of a lead, I guess this all starts with our website. We modeled Steve's website and created the whole flow through to create a lead. We use Calendly at the bottom of the that to do all the intake for new customers. And then we use Zapier to take all of that information, put it onto the Google Calendar. That goes into our CRM, goes into Google Doc as well, just for safekeeping of all of the data. And then we use Paint Scout for all of our estimating. Paint Scout's pretty sweet program. It's pretty user friendly, and I love the data that it gives us. Sales information, the closing ratios, and the open bids that we have, the automated responses, and everything. um, we use Monday for production management, Monday.com.
Hmm.
So that's maintained by my office manager. And then we use ClockShark for the employees to clock in and out. We also use ClockShark for their scheduling. So the office manager inputs the job as well as the work order into ClockShark, so the employees can pull it up right there on their phone through ClockShark. All of the employees, I like it because they only need one app, and they can pull up their work order. They can get all of the color information. They can get all the customers' information, and they can see their schedule, and they can clock in and out all right there in one spot. So it keeps it simple for them because painters aren't usually the most like tech forward people.
Oh yeah.
So once they've learned it, then they're good, uh, and that's been working great. What else? I've started using Chat GPT a bit for some of our like
Hmm.
content creation, and I also use it just as like an idea generator. So like if I'm thinking about something, I'm trying to figure out, well, what's a good way to solve this problem? I'll just ask Chat GPT, and sometimes it comes out with good ideas, sometimes it's not.
Hmm.
But
Right.
um, yeah, what else? QuickBooks for finances. We use ChargeZoom for invoicing. Um,
Email
I'm
program.
I'm definitely interested in. Sorry,
Email.
definitely interested. Email, yeah, just Gmail. We use the G Suite for all of that.
Well, aren't you are you using Mailchimp or Active Campaign though?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We use Active
Okay.
Campaign. And DYB Virtual helped us set up a whole pre-selling campaign. So as soon as somebody sets a appointment for a bid with us, then the active campaign kicks off a 4 email series that just tells them a little bit more about us and what to expect. And I get so many positive comments about that from people, and oftentimes people are like already sold when they just need me to show up and like fill out. It's like order taking rather than sales.
Right on.
So that's been
Right
great for
on.
us.
Awesome. Fantastic, John. I really appreciate your time. Before we roll out, is there a question I should have asked or a final point that you'd like to make?
Oh, good question. Um, I would just say that the one of the best things I've ever done is find people who are smarter than me and have already done the things that I'm trying to
Hmm.
do, and work with them and use mentorship, coaches. Working with Steve has had a huge impact on my life and my business. And it's not even just the business. Actually, Steve, working with you, like we put a lot of focus on personal health and physical activity and everything. And they're kind of two separate worlds, but once you start realizing it, you realize no, they're exactly the same thing, and it's all one. And, I've just really appreciated the combination of physical activity and physical health and watching, like I wear my Aura ring so I can be monitoring what's going on with my sleep patterns. And yeah, but through all the encouragement in the OMG group, I've been able to maintain like working out every other day, and that just increases your energy level. So then you're able to bring a lot more energy into the business and accomplish a lot more that way. And so hiring the right coaches and finding the right mentors and finding other people to help guide you and down your path is probably one of the most impactful things that an entrepreneur can do. So I'm very appreciative to Steve and for the DYB system that you put together. It's had a huge impact on my life.
Well, thank you, John. Appreciate that very much. It's been my pleasure and my honor, and what a fun ride it's been too, and looking forward to the future for sure. It's exciting. I'm grateful for
Right
you.
on.
So, thank you again for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story.
Happy. Yeah. Thank you, Steve.